You ever knock on a door, and the moment your hand leaves it, your gut drops? Like your body knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet? Yeah, that was me. It was raining. Not just a drizzle, either. That kind of rain that makes everything feel heavier. The air, the silence, even your breath. And I remember thinking, don't do it. Just turn around. Go back home. Pretend you never came. But my feet, they didn't listen. Neither did my heart. It had already wandered too far to play it safe now. I knocked. 3 times. Steady. Careful. Like I was trying not to wake something sleeping. And then, that pause. That quiet that stretches so long, you almost believe no one's there. But then it opened. And they were standing there. Not 1. Not 2. All 3 of them. Looking at me like they knew. Like they'd been waiting. And I just stood there, wet from the rain, heart pounding so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. Trying to figure out how the hell I ended up here. Because that door. It wasn't just wood and paint. It was a line. A boundary. A warning. And I stepped over it. Let me back up a second, because you don't end up on a doorstep like that without a story behind it. You don't find yourself staring into the eyes of 3 people who know more than they're saying, without something breaking first. So, if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever loved someone who didn't see you anymore, if you've ever needed something you didn't have the words to ask for, then maybe you'll understand why I knocked. Why I stayed. Why part of me still hasn't walked away. Because this story, it's not about lust. It's not even really about betrayal. It's about being human. About craving connections so badly, you convince yourself the line you're crossing isn't that bad. It's about lonely dinners, quiet car rides, cold shoulders, and a shared bed. It's about what happens when the people who notice you aren't the ones you expected. And yeah, sometimes it starts with a look. Sometimes a text. Sometimes it starts with a knock. But whatever way it begins, it always asks the same question. Are you sure you want to know what's on the other side? Because I didn't. Not really. But I found out anyway. Subscribe now, because the deepest wounds hide behind closed doors. And the stories that echo loudest are the ones we swore we'd never tell. It started with borrowed sugar. But what I really needed was something that could sweeten my life. Daniel and I had been married for 9 years. Not unhappy. Just silent. The kind of silence that creeps in slowly, like a draft through a cracked window. You don't notice it at first. But one day, you realize you've been cold for months. He was always working. Calls, emails, business trips. He'd come home, say the right things. How was your day? Did you eat? Good night. But his eyes were somewhere else. His body came home. But the rest of him didn't. And I stopped trying to follow. Across the street, it was different. Clara and Marcus, the couple everyone admired. Always smiling. Always hosting. Always watching. Clara had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. Warm eyes. Soft touch. She started dropping by at first to say hi, then to check in. I didn't mind. It felt good to be seen. And Marcus? He didn't talk much, but his glances held things his mouth didn't say. Lingering looks. Half smiles, like he was waiting for me to notice that he'd noticed. Then there was Eli, Marcus's younger brother. Mid-20s. Art student. Messy hair. Too charming for his own good. He was always around. Helping Clara with the garden. Fixing something for Marcus. Sketchbook in hand. Smudges on his fingers. Eyes that made you feel interesting. He talked to me like I mattered. Asked questions Daniel hadn't asked in years. Listened to my answers. It's a quiet neighborhood. One of those suburban places where every lawn is trimmed, every smile polite, but behind closed doors, everyone's story is unraveling in its own quiet way. Our house was clean, but cold. Theirs was alive. I started finding excuses to step outside when I heard them talking. Started saying yes more when Clara invited me in. Started laughing louder when Eli was around. I didn't plan it. I didn't even know what it was. All I knew was that home didn't feel like home anymore. And across the street, something buzzed beneath the surface. Warmth, attention, curiosity, and something else. Something I wasn't ready to name. Not yet. Our anniversary came and went like a regular Tuesday. No flowers, no card, not even a happy anniversary text. Daniel was in the middle of a project. One of those tight deadlines that always seem to fall on days that matter to me. He left that evening in a hurry, shirt wrinkled, tie crooked, laptop half-zipped in his bag. Said something about a late-night meeting downtown, kissed my cheek without looking me in the eyes. And just like that, he was gone. I sat at the dining table with a glass of wine, staring at 2 candles I lit myself. The silence was louder than usual. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just felt tired. Clara must have seen the porch light still on. She texted me, "Wine night. Just us. Come over." I told myself it was better than being alone. Maybe I even believed that. I threw on a sweater, slipped on flats, and crossed the street. When she opened the door, I should have known. The music was too soft. The kind that hums low and slow, makes you feel things you weren't ready to feel. The lights were dim, like the house was whispering secrets already. And they were all there. Clara, Marcus, Eli. 3 smiles. 3 glasses already poured. 3 people who looked at me like I was meant to walk in. They said my name like it tasted sweet. Clara hugged me a second longer than usual. Marcus's eyes didn't leave mine when he handed me the wine. Eli's grin was lazy, teasing like he knew something I didn't. I told myself it was just wine. Just neighbors. Just company. We laughed. Talked about everything and nothing. But the jokes, they had edges. Double meanings. Questions that felt too personal to be casual. Clara leaned in close when she spoke. Marcus watched me when I wasn't talking. Eli sat across from me, his foot almost touching mine under the table. Every movement felt choreographed, but in that way where you can't tell if it's real or imagined. I laughed. Too much. Too loud. Because it felt good. To be seen. To be heard. To have 3 sets of eyes that actually looked at me, noticed me. I should have gone home then. But it felt nice to be noticed. To be waited for. When I finally stood to leave, Clara walked me to the hallway. Eli stayed behind, sketching something in his book. Marcus followed. At the door, he opened it for me. But didn't step back. Rain had started again. Light this time, soft against the pavement. I turned to say goodbye, and Marcus looked at me quiet. Steady. Then he leaned in and said, "Anytime you knock, we'll be here." And I swear, it wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. Like it wasn't a joke. Like it wasn't a line. Like he meant it. And I walked back across the street feeling like I'd just been offered something I didn't know I wanted, but couldn't stop thinking about. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling like it had answers. The sheets were cold beside me. Daniel still wasn't home. Said he had to crash at the office. Too late to drive back. Too tired to call. And maybe that should have made me angry. But it didn't. It just made the silence feel more permanent. I kept replaying the night. Their faces. Their voices. The way the wine tasted warmer in their house. Clara's laugh. Eli's gaze. Marcus's voice. Anytime you knock, it looped in my mind, like a song you didn't ask to hear, but can't turn off. I felt guilty, but not for what happened. For what I wanted to happen. I turned on my side, pulled the blanket up to my chin, tried to tell myself it was harmless. Just neighbors. Just a strange night. Just attention. But I knew better. Because when I closed my eyes, my dreams betrayed me. And in them, I wasn't sitting politely on their couch. I wasn't sipping wine, laughing at their jokes. I was closer, warmer, touched in ways that weren't physical, but somehow felt deeper than skin. I told myself it was innocent, but my dreams said otherwise. In them, I wasn't watching, I was joining. And the part that scared me the most was how alive I felt. Like someone had turned on a light in a room I forgot existed. Daniel came home the next morning, coffee in hand, kissed my forehead, mumbled something about deadlines and traffic. He didn't notice the way I looked at him. Didn't see how I flinched when his lips touched my skin. I watched him move around the kitchen, the same routine, same mug, same size. And I thought, why do I feel guiltier about what I wanted than what I did? Is it cheating if no one touches you, but they touch something inside you? Is it betrayal if all you did was laugh too long, stay too late, feel too much? I didn't have answers. Just questions that wouldn't sit still, and a memory that wouldn't fade. A knock, a whisper. 3 people waiting, and something inside me starting to wake up. It was 3 nights later when I went back. No excuse this time. No borrowed sugar. No forgotten package. Just me, walking across the street like I didn't already know what I was doing. The house looked the same. Warm light in the windows. Curtains drawn, but not tightly. Like they wanted me to see it glowing. I stood there for a second, hand raised to knock, and then I did. Soft, like last time. But this time, the door opened faster. Clara again. Smile easy. Eyes warm. Hey, you, she said like she'd been expecting me. Like my name was written in the air between us. I stepped inside. And again, they were all there. Eli on the floor, sketchbook in his lap. Marcus leaning against the counter, glass of red in hand. 3 faces turning toward me. 3 versions of welcome in their eyes. We talked. About nothing, at first. Music, travel, movies we hadn't seen. But then the questions came. The ones Daniel never asks. Do you like being married? What do you miss most about yourself? When's the last time you felt really seen? And I answered, not all at once, but enough. Clara sat beside me on the couch, her legs tucked under her, body angled toward mine. Marcus kept refilling my glass, never asking, just pouring. Eli watched me like I was something to be studied. Then he flipped his notebook around. A sketch of me. My eyes, half lit by the lamp. Lips parted, caught mid-thought. I laughed, but something inside me cracked open. And I didn't put it back. The music was playing again. Soft. That same low hum that sinks into your skin. Clara brushed a strand of hair from my face and said, "It's nice to feel wanted, isn't it?" I didn't answer. Didn't have to. Because the truth was sitting between us, thick in the air, warming my chest, making my hands shake just slightly. The conversation turned again, this time to childhood, regret, desire. And just as I stood to leave, Clara leaned in close, eyes locked on mine, and whispered, "You always knock so softly. Why not just come in next time?" And I froze, because it wasn't a question. It was an invitation. And the next time I knocked, I didn't wait for an invitation. The 3rd time, it was raining again. Of course it was. Like the sky knew something was about to happen. Like it wanted to wash me clean before I stepped over the line I'd been dancing around for weeks. Daniel was gone. Another client dinner. Another vague explanation. Another cold kiss on the cheek as he backed out of the driveway with his phone already to his ear. I stood by the window, watching the streetlights flicker through the drops. Watching their house. Warm light. Curtains open just enough. And I couldn't sit still. My heart was pounding, not from guilt, not yet. From something closer to hunger. A kind of ache that had nothing to do with loneliness anymore, and everything to do with curiosity. With possibility. I grabbed my coat. No umbrella. Didn't even think to. My feet crossed the pavement like they knew the path by memory now. I stood in front of their door, hand raised. And, for the first time, I didn't hesitate. I knocked. Once. And then the door opened. No music. No words. Just 3 faces turned toward me like they knew. Like I wasn't a guest anymore. I was expected. Clara was in silk, barefoot, glass of wine in hand, untouched. Eli looked up from the armchair, sketchbook closed for once. He smiled, not wide, just enough to say, "We're past pretending now." Marcus stood behind them, arms crossed, jaw tense. But his eyes, they burned. No one said a thing. No need. Clara reached for my coat. Eli moved to the side. Marcus shut the door behind me. The warmth hit me first, not from the heater, from them. Clara's hand grazed my shoulder as she took my coat. Eli brushed past me, his fingers trailing across the back of mine. Marcus walked by, close enough for his breath to touch my neck. I didn't speak. Couldn't. Because words would have made it real. And part of me still needed to believe I had a choice. But my body, it had already made the decision. We didn't sit on the couch this time. We stood. Close. Too close. And then everything blurred. Hands. Breath. Soft laughter in the dark. Clara whispered in my ear. I don't remember what she said. Only that her voice made my knees feel weak. Eli's hand found mine. Marcus watched me like I was a painting he'd been studying too long to pretend he didn't care. And I stood there, between all 3 of them, as something in me broke open. Or maybe bloomed. I don't know if it was a trap. Or a rescue. I just know I'd never felt that seen. That wanted. That known. And for one suspended moment, in the silence, in the heat, in the storm outside that kept falling, I let it happen. I let me happen. And then everything faded to black. When I got back home, the house was dark. Daniel's car was in the driveway. The porch light was off. I stepped inside and felt the cold hit me like I'd walked into a different world entirely. He was already asleep, lying on his side, back turned toward my side of the bed. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe a flicker of guilt. Maybe some part of me hoping he'd wake up, ask me where I'd been, look into my eyes and see something, but he didn't move. Didn't stir. Not even when I climbed under the sheets. I laid there, eyes open, heartbeat thudding in my throat. I could still feel them. Their touch. Their breath. Their closeness. It wasn't a dream. It had happened. And now I had to exist inside a life that hadn't shifted to match what I'd done. I got up before sunrise. Stumbled into the bathroom. Turned on the light. And there I was. Staring at myself in the mirror. But it didn't feel like me. It felt like someone else was looking back. Someone who had opened a door she couldn't close again. I touched my lips like I could wipe the memory away. But it clung. The day moved on like it always did. Coffee, emails, the sound of Daniel in the kitchen, humming under his breath like nothing was off. I answered him, smiled where I was supposed to, laughed once or twice. I played the part, but I felt like I was walking underwater, everything muffled, slow, detached. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed. Marcus, you okay? Just that. No punctuation. No emoji. Just a thread pulled tight between us. I didn't answer. An hour later, I stepped outside to get the mail. Clara was across the street, watering her plants in a dress too thin for the weather. She saw me, smiled, and waved. But she didn't wave like a neighbor. She waved like someone who'd already touched the parts of you no one else had. Her hand stayed up a beat too long. Her eyes held mine a second too hard. That night, another knock came, this time not at the door, but digitally. Eli sent me a photo. Another sketch. Me again. But not the me sitting stiffly with a glass of wine. Not the me wrapped in a cardigan, hiding behind polite conversation. No. This was me, head tilted, lips parted, eyes heavy. Alive. Undone. Exposed. I stared at it for a long time. They didn't treat it like a secret. They treated it like a beginning. And maybe that's what terrified me the most. Not that it happened, but that they wanted it to happen again. That I wanted it, too. And somewhere in all of that, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. I should feel shame. That's what everyone would expect, right? You cross a line, you live with the guilt. You bury it. You beg forgiveness. You try to forget. But that's not what I felt. What I felt was conflicted. Because part of me misses them. Misses that version of myself. The one who laughed without holding back. The one who felt seen, touched even without being touched. I keep thinking about what it meant. Not the moment itself, but the pull that led me there. I try to put it into words, but it's messy. Because it wasn't lust. Not really. It wasn't about bodies or desire in the way people think. It was about something quieter. Something deeper. It was validation. It was warmth. It was the feeling of being chosen. Of walking into a room and knowing, without a doubt, that you mattered. It was affection. But also betrayal. Not just of Daniel, but of myself. Of the woman I thought I was. The woman I said I'd always be. I catch myself staring at the sketch Eli sent. Not because of how he drew me, but because of how he saw me. It made me question things. Not just my marriage, but everything. How long had I been fading? How long had I been pretending that Daniel's distance didn't cut me? That the silence at our dinner table wasn't screaming? He's not cruel. He's not cold. He's just absent. And I've been disappearing quietly, one unmet need at a time. So when they looked at me like I was still alive, I reached for it. Does that make me weak? Does that make me unfaithful? Or just human? Because now, nothing is clear. Did it go all the way? What does that even mean? If your heart races, if your body leans in, if your mind wanders and stays, if hands touch skin but never the way you'd expect, is that not a kind of intimacy? A kind that's harder to erase? I don't know how to name what happened. I just know I'm not the same. And neither is the silence in my house. It feels heavier now. Like it knows. And still, I can't stop wondering if they were to open that door again, would I knock? Or would I just walk in? Have you ever stepped into something, not to ruin what you had, not to break vows, not to hurt anyone, but just to feel something again? To feel seen, held, awake. Not because you didn't care, but because you'd spent so long pretending not to need. I didn't go there to cheat. I didn't go there with a plan. I went because I was tired of feeling like a shadow in my own home. I went because they saw me. And maybe that's the part no one tells you, how easy it is to slip into the arms of attention when you've been starving for it. So I'll ask you something now, from that same quiet place inside me. Would you knock if you knew what was behind the door? Would you go if someone was waiting there to look at you like you were the center of the room again? Would you cross that line? If the silence on the other side of your life had become too loud to bear? Drop your truth in the comments. Tell me what you've never said out loud. I'm listening. We all are. And if this story touched something you thought was long buried, subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. The next one might not just sound familiar, it might feel like you. Some doors open to comfort, others to chaos, but most open to mirrors. I knocked, and I walked through. And now, I can't unsee what was waiting for me there. 3 of them. Not lovers, not strangers, but reflections of everything I thought I'd hidden so well. The parts of me that wanted, the parts that wondered, the parts that whispered in the dark when no one else was listening. And maybe that's the cruelest kind of knowing, not what you did, but what it awakened. Because you can leave a house. You can even leave a marriage. But how do you leave a part of yourself when it's still waiting inside someone else's door?